They're off. The festival springs into action.
The Cheltenham Festival, the pinnacle of jumps racing. It's one of the biggest race meetings of the year. Enormous amounts of money will be bet on these horses by enormous amounts of people. Much fun will be had. But not many people will be able to find a winner. But the truth is, I have actually been able to win on every single race at Cheltenham. If you don't believe that, then you'll never believe that I've done it 2 years in a row. And if you don't believe that, you'll never believe that it's been 20 years since I first did it. So the big question is, surely that is impossible. Well, it all depends how you're doing it. And if you want to find out how I'm doing it and how I'm able to win on every single race at Cheltenham, just watch the rest of this video. So what are the odds of actually picking a winner of every single horse race at Cheltenham? Hiya, I've got a question for you. We know the chance of a favourite winning and in a horse race is about 1/3. Taking that into account, what would be the chance of every favourite winning the Cheltenham Festival? And there are 28 races, and let's assume, for example, that the favourite wins every single race, because those would be, the best chance of being able to win on all 28 races. What is the chance of achieving that?
If each favourite has about a 1/3 chance of winning, you multiply that probability for all 28 races. So 1/3 raised to the power of 28 is incredibly tiny, around 1 in 200 trillion. In other words, it's basically impossible, but fun to imagine.
However, I have actually done it, which sounds incredible. But it's more about the way that I do things that's more important than the fact that I've actually done it. Because when you fully understand exactly how I've been able to win on every single race at Cheltenham, then it all begins to sort of fall into place. And as with a lot of things in life, that, always use the word impossible with the greatest of caution. Because if you understand or you look at things in a slightly different way, you'll be amazed at what you can achieve. So what is it that I'm actually doing? So what am I actually doing? Well, the key thing here to understand is that I'm using a betting exchange, not a traditional bookmaker. And on a betting exchange, you can buy and sell odds in the same way that you would buy and sell something on the stock market. You're trading the sports market the way that you would trade the stock market. If the odds are at 2 and we don't like any particular selection within the market and we think the odds are going to drift, then we'd lay at 2 and we'd back it at 3 and net the profit between the two. But let's say that Willie Mullins has a few runners that come in. Then people start backing the next runner in the race that is trained by Willie Mullins. It's not rocket science. So what we would do is we'd back the odds that we could possibly get in the market at that moment in time, and then we would lay it into the market. And we'd net the profit between the two. But this time, because the odds are getting backed and they're getting shorter and shorter and people are backing this sure thing, we're benefiting not from the fact that it's going to win the race, but the fact that people are going to start moving the odds around. And if we can buy and sell those odds, we can net a profit between the two. So when you look at a market on a betting exchange, you have two options. On one side, you have the ability to place a back bet. A back bet is very similar to what you'd expect to do with a traditional bet. You bet on something to win, and that's about it. You'll get a return based upon your stake and the odds that are on offer. But on a betting exchange, you also have the ability to place a lay bet, and a lay bet is betting on something to lose. So actually, rather than a traditional bet, you can actually back something to win, or you can lay on something to lose. Let's have a closer look at these two options. So let's go into the betting exchange and place a back bet. And if we place a £100 back bet in this market at odds of 6.6, what that 6.6 means is that we will win 5.6 times whatever our stake is. So that 6.6, one of that is the stake and 5.6 is the return that we get. So by placing a bet for £100, we will return a total of £560 if this horse goes on to win. So what we're going to do now is we're going to go into this market and we are going to place a lay bet. So a back bet you would place if you think something's going to win, and a lay bet you would place if you think something is going to lose. So if we go into this market and place a lay bet at 6.8, basically we're doing the opposite of a back bet. If this horse loses, we will win our stake. We will win £100. However, in order to get the bet accepted on the other side of the market, we have to offer up a liability, a multiple of that stake. And in this occasion, because we've laid at 6.8, this means that if the horse loses, we win the backer's stake of £100. However, if that horse wins, we have to stump up that cash for the backer. In this case, we would lose £580. So yeah, that is backing and laying on an exchange. Now this is where it gets really interesting on a betting exchange, because we can actually back and lay on the same horse. And you're sort of thinking, well, why would you do that? Why would you back and lay? You know, you're betting on something to win and you're betting on it to lose. Surely the two cancel each other out, which they do if you bet at the same price. But if you put a little gap between that back and lay price, then you can actually create a free bet. If you can lay at a lower price than you back at, or you back at a higher price than you lay at, then you actually create a free bet, which means that you can't possibly lose on this race. And if this horse goes on to win, then you will actually win that free bet. It's a really neat little trick that you can do on betting exchanges. But it gets even better.
Now then, we're off to Wolverhampton again, and we've got quite a market mover here. Intensifier, 25, 16, 14, 12, now 10 to 1. Intensifier in this, the win, whatever the result with Bet Angel handicap. Now that sounds good, doesn't it? Whatever the result, I will win. That's fantastic. Who can lose in this race?
So this is where things get really clever, because when we back and lay at different prices, we create a free bet on one of those horses within the particular race. But what we can actually do is we can hedge that free bet across the entire market. And the net effect of this is that we will win whatever the result. And we tend to be active in the market before the race has actually started. So we back and lay at different prices and we hedge that position, and then we know that we have won regardless of the outcome of the race. We can just sit back, enjoy the racing, knowing that we have won already. So when you look at these impressive results, winning on every single race at Cheltenham, this is essentially what I'm doing. I'm backing at some prices, I'm laying at others, but I'm leaving that gap in odds between the two so that I net a profit whoever goes on to win. But what I'm also doing, I'm not keeping it as a free bet, I'm hedging that position so that I know that I've won regardless of who goes on to win the race, even before the race has started. And one of the reasons that I'm able to do this at Cheltenham so effectively is because the Cheltenham markets are huge. There's going to be about £100 million bet on betting exchanges during Cheltenham, and that makes for quite favourable conditions to do this particular type of betting strategy. Now, there's also something else that you need to be aware of, is that in the examples that I've given you in this video, I'm using quite small stakes and making small amounts of money, but at Cheltenham, some of the results that I get, you know, these are fully hedged results before the race has started, can be pretty huge. But there's a couple of reasons for that. The first one I've mentioned is the amount of betting that is taking place at Cheltenham. But also there's a thing on betting exchanges that people don't really talk about too much, and that's called instant settlement. So if I have a £100 bet in the market and then I put another £100 in on the other side, I can actually use that stake again. So all that remains in the market is the profit or loss that you have made, and you get to use that stake again. So that's what I do. I just use the stake again and again and again, and I try and trade for as long as possible. And at markets like Cheltenham, you can trade these markets for a good 30 minutes before the race has started. So I'll be in and out of the market consistently, trying to get those trades through the market. And then when that is completed, I will hedge that position, and then the race starts. But by then, I've made my money. I can sit back and enjoy the action. Okay, so one criticism of trading on a betting exchange is people could say it's just completely random and you cannot guess which direction the odds are going to go in. It's a 50-50 chance. And therefore, trying to win on all 28 races is going to be a huge number as well. What would that number be? And do you think that that is really the case?
So if you treat each race's odds direction as a coin toss 50-50, then winning all 28 is like flipping a coin and getting heads 28 times in a row. That's 1 in 2 to the power of 28, which is about 1 in 268 million. It's astronomically unlikely if it's purely random. But in reality, trading isn't just guessing. It's based on interpreting market information, patterns and timing. So while you can't guarantee winning all races, skill shifts those odds significantly.
So yeah, there is a skill element to this. I've been doing this for a number of years, which is why I can produce these results. But there are a lot of people that do this. They all have their different sort of angles and strategies that they want to use in order to make this very effective. But if you look at my channel, I've got loads of videos that talk about the tactics and strategies around how to do this. If you just rock up and start doing it without any care or thought or attention, then you're probably going to fail. So it's better to be prepared. And if you use software like BetAngel, it's got a practice mode, so even if you're not sure what you're doing or how to do it, you can play around to your heart's content without any risk to your betting bank. But when you look at all of the strategies and the way that you can do these things, there are so many simple things that you can do. If a horse doesn't look like it's behaving itself, then necessarily the odds will drift, so you can lay it and back it at a higher price. But if a jockey or a trainer is in form and gets a few winners, then the price will start to get smaller because people will start backing it. So you can back it at a higher price and lay it off at a lower price. There are so many ways of doing it. I recommend that you watch some of the videos that I've done specifically on this tactic in order to get a better grip on exactly what you should be doing. But if you want to know how to win on every single race at Cheltenham, that's the way that it's done.